We go.
Okay.
How am I going to leave the meeting? I just started recording Zoom. My apologies to everybody watching. I have to get close to be able to see my screen.
Okay, that server is done.
I should probably turn my phone on silent.
That might be a good idea.
And I guess for backup purposes, I should record this.
Oh, that might be good.
And enabling original sound.
Whoa. Hello. You are very loud.
Am I?
You're better now, I think.
No.
Recording in progress. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, folks that are listening to the stream. We're very glad you're here, so welcome. This will remain on YouTube for people to watch in the future. So please be nice in the chat. No profanity, no craziness, no nothing. Well, something, but nothing NSFW. Zoom really is an amazing platform for doing stuff like this.
And we've got a train. Do we post on just iAccessibility website, or are we not gonna worry about that, Michael?
Could you do that real quick, or?
Yeah, I can do it real quick. I just don't know if I can get an image, but I'll just quick put something together.
Yeah, that's fine.
Michael, is there any way that you could turn your gain down just a tiny bit?
Nope.
No? Okay.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work, yeah.
Oh shoot, it wants me to log in. Oh, wow.
I'm not sure of a way to change my gain in Zoom.
That's all right.
It's gonna make me log in.
It's interesting because I don't know if you can see this, Lauren, but my lights are off in this room, but yet it does not look like that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The iPad does some really neat lighting stuff, and this is not even the new Pro.
Are you on an iPad?
Yeah, I'm on my iPad.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. The video on this thing is much better than the video on the Mac.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm not commenting on you. I'm commenting on what I'm usually on the IAcast.
Yeah.
I need to find a good webcam to use for computer streaming, though.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm trying to do this quickly.
You're fine.
Yeah, folks, we're gonna get started soon.
We have 0 viewers currently.
Okay, well.
This is what our live streams are like. We don't have a link until we start, so we are, Taylor's being awesome promoting the stream, so we can get started here in a few minutes. So,
Yep.
If you're watching the stream after the fact, just fast forward till a little bit later.
I wish we could have a link. That'd make my life so much easier.
Well, what we could probably do is schedule the stream, and I wonder how we could tell. I mean, I guess we could use the custom stream feature in Zoom.
Yeah.
So this will be episode 2 of the show. We started the last episode on our iAccessibility channel, and so we're carrying over here. So if you're tuning into this, welcome. We'll do introductions here in a second, but we're going to make this a weekly show because we had so much fun last week. And I'm not being sarcastic. It was really a lot of fun. Actually, technically, I guess this is our pre-show. We can, patrons, if you really like us that much, we can probably add this on one of our Patreon accounts. So,
both of our Patreon accounts.
Yeah. So, if you want the pre-shows, we can cut those. Didn't even think about that, Taylor.
Yeah, well, both Patreon. So if you subscribe to both or one of the Patreons, you'll get them.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that at the end of the show.
Yep. Oh, I don't have an image on this. Crap.
That's fine.
I don't really care at this point.
We will image it later.
I just want this thing out here. That's all I care about.
Canva or Pixelmator?
Nope, it's called an already...
Oh, come on. Let me have fun.
I will probably use one of the Techopolis logos.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you want, you can use the Techopolis logo and slap the word live on it somewhere. Make it look all flashy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think it's gone out to all the places.
Cool.
So I'm gonna be monitoring chats, folks. So if you would like to join us, chat.
Yep, it just went out. I got a thing.
I will be monitoring the chats for us today.
All right, let me know when you're ready, Taylor.
We've got 3 people watching, and I'm ready to go.
Well, fantastic. Welcome. That was better than the 0 that I saw a minute ago.
Well, maybe a couple of them could be me or you.
Possibly. All right, we ready?
Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Techopolis Live Show, episode number 2. Last week, we were on the iAccessibility channel, and so on the show, as hosts, we have me, Michael Dowies, and we have Taylor Arndt.
Hey, I'm glad to be back for another show. This was fun last week.
Yeah, and we actually brought a guest. We brought somebody, and she'll be on quite a bit. Lauren Flinner is here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we thought this topic would be really up your alley. And the rule for this show, we have one rule, and that's to enjoy, the conversation. And we're going to talk about using, or if a tablet can be used for coding. So, yeah. So, we all do code, all 3 of us, but, Lauren, you do a lot of code on a tablet. And we'll get to that in a minute, but Taylor, do you do any code on a tablet?
I really don't. I mean, to be honest with you, I've just been in the Windows land, and I really haven't looked out. But again, with all the new features that Swift UI and the playgrounds have coming up, like I said, it is tempting, but honestly, I'm still in my Windows land, right? So, haven't been able to crack out of that, unfortunately.
Well, and the neat thing is there's tablets that can do anything now. Like there's the Surface Pros and all those that are technically tablets, but the iPad. So let's talk about let's have a conversation about this. And so the iPad came out in 2010 and kind of changed the way we looked at tablets. And, I didn't grow up on a tablet whenever I was young. Did, you guys are a bit different in age than me. Did you guys grow up on tablets?
Yes. I mean, I've used iPads, like I said, for, I don't even know how long. But yeah, I've definitely used iPads. We do have some chats, so whenever it is convenient, I would like to acknowledge those.
Okay. And Lauren, real quick, what about you?
I didn't start out on a tablet. I think I started in like maybe 2015 or somewhere around there. But I mean, pretty much from then on out, I worked on tablets.
Okay. And Taylor, what have we got in the chat so far?
We have Jason Earls. All right, Jason says.
Oh, God.
Oh, here we go. Michael, sounds like you're on a compressor.
Does it?
Also, I'm just a viewer. I'm just saying. Nice, Jason. Awesome.
Let me see if
also
Zoom.
have some Discord messages as well.
Right quick, you can change your output in Zoom in audio settings.
Hang on just a second. Let's see.
All right. While he's doing his audio game break here, we do have some Zoom messages. I hope we don't have any Zoom messages because that would be very interesting. We do, however, have some Discord messages. Casey, I believe in the other channel, says that I am listening. Well, awesome. And if anybody else who is listening, feel free to acknowledge yourself in the chat. This is a very interactive show, and we will be taking chat quite frequently.
Yeah. And, it's interesting, Jason, your message, because original sound is on. So I'm curious why it's acting like it's on a compressor. That's weird. So we will have to just roll with it because I don't want to have my head too close to the screen while I'm constantly looking at settings. So we will just roll with that. But yeah, it's one of those things when you're working on an iPad and with a good microphone. So and I bet because I'm not talking directly into the capsule, that's causing the problem. But tablets have allowed us to do a lot of different things, but tablets were around before the iPad. Were y'all aware?
I did not.
Yeah, I mean, I was aware of it, but I mean, really the first tablet that I really started to use was an iPad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had a Toshiba Windows XP tablet.
Wow.
Yes, that was a thing.
Wow.
And it was an all-in-one, so it had a full keyboard and touchpad, just like a computer, and the screen would rotate and then would close back on itself. And I'm like, man, that was so ahead of its time back then. I was just thinking about this thing. And it was a touchscreen. Well, I don't know whether if it's a touchscreen or if you could use the pin, like the pin and pin support that they've had forever. But even back then, you could write handwriting and it would turn it to text, just like Surface tablets do now.
Right, and that's interesting because you can do that on the iPad as well, obviously.
Right.
And so it's really interesting how tablets have evolved.
I had way back, like 2003, I had like Palm smartphones. Those were a classic because they even had touchscreens. They were conductive and not resistive, or they were resistive and not conductive screens, but they were still neat. And there go sirens outside. I didn't do it.
That sounds really awesome through Zoom.
Right?
Really
And I actually had this little. Well, they just turn that off. I actually, right. I had a device called the Palm Life Drive, and it was this Palm device with a spinning hard drive, like an iPod, and with a 20 gig drive in it. And it was like the neatest thing ever back in like 2003, 2004. But, back to what we were talking about, when the iPad was made, they had no plans for people to code on it. No. And I think they still are like begrudgingly allowing people to code on it.
Mm-hmm. They're doing it because they have to, because people are demanding it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of. So Lauren, tell us about your experience coding on an iPad, because you use an iPad for more of your daily driver than we do.
Yeah, so I actually I kind of made it work. Coding on the iPad it obviously has its challenges, but I was able to make it work with a couple different apps. There's Coda, it's called something different now, right?
Code editor, I think.
Code editor. I sometimes made it work on Notes. Obviously, that's not the best option. There's drafts. There's ways around coding on the iPad, whether they want it or not.
And it depends on what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Like there's Swift playgrounds where you could write Swift code. There's Pythonista where you could write Python code. There's an app, I believe it's called Play.js, where you could write Vue.js code and actually run it on a live server environment on your iPad, and other things like that. But, and then later this year, we're getting Swift Playgrounds, the new version that lets you build apps for the App Store. But, here's kind of my big question to you guys. Is coding on an iPad practical? Is actually spending that time practical to code on an iPad or a tablet like that?
I think it depends on how you incorporate it into your workflow. Personally, in my opinion, I see the iPad as a prototyping type thing, to where you put your ideas on your iPad and you run it to see if it works, and you kind of get started with that process. I know it probably could be done from start to finish, but I don't see it being practical, personally.
I have to agree with Lauren on this. I think, like I said, I think it could be a good prototyping tool, especially if you're doing graphical user interfaces or GUIs, right? Because you can kind of spatially lay things out, and I've seen the iPad be used in that way before, where blind developers will spatially lay their user elements out, or user interface elements out. And so I think, like I said, especially for those kind of things, and the starting process, but in terms of doing it practically, I think that we're not quite to that point yet. Now, do I think we can eventually? Sure, but right now, I think that you still need your Mac, but if you're on the go, or your Windows, but if you're on the go, or you're doing something, I think the iPad could definitely be a good tool in your toolbox.
And, I think also one of the biggest things that's really important to think about is, if you need a tablet, is that the right decision to get an iPad? Because the Surface Pro and even the Surface Go are great options for that.
Yeah, and that leads us into some chat messages.
What do we got?
Well, we have a couple questions about Android tablets, right? Because even if you really wanted to, an Android tablet could still be a viable option, maybe. But Your Own Pay asks, is it practical, or let me rephrase this. He asks us that, can you program on an Android tablet?
Do they exist anymore? No. And actually, in all seriousness, though, there are very few Android tablets left on the marketplace. And I think when Google pulled themselves out of the tablet business and focused on Chrome OS, Samsung and maybe a few other vendors are the only ones left, and they only bring out one or two tablets. And so the Android tablet market is a thing, but I don't consider it to be as big of a deal as what Google's doing with Chrome OS. So the problem with a lot of Android apps is they are not designed to work well in a tablet environment. Steve Jobs actually said it right. Android apps on a tablet are giant phone apps.
Yeah. And that's also a good point as well. And we do have one more chat message from Henry Tong. He says, hi there. I'm also curious to know your thoughts about using an Android tablet.
I actually got the chance to try out the Android tablets, one of the Samsung ones with their DeX solution. where you can connect a keyboard and a mouse to it, and it has a desktop and has all the things. And at least at that point, this was in 2019, that was not accessible at all for low vision or blind users. Yes, nothing would read with screen readers, and I couldn't get screen magnification to work right. So I'd love to try it again, but at the time, I just kind of gave it up as this is not going to work well for me. It can be done though, and now I actually would say you have more of an option if you're going to develop with a Chromebook. And the reason is Chromebooks actually have Linux, where you can run Linux applications. It takes more work. It takes a lot of work, but you can get Visual Studio Code running on a Chromebook along with Android apps. So
you can, yeah. That's another interesting point, right? So, I guess to round that section up, I mean, while you can, kind of program, again, it's just not like practical because a lot of the apps don't really work on that kind of environment.
They don't display well. They don't really display well. Go ahead.
One thing I would say though is if you are working on the design aspects, like Taylor said, the more graphical components, I think definitely the iPad is a good option, especially if you're trying to lay things out spatially. But yeah, I definitely think.
Yeah, iPad, I actually, the funny thing is I think iPad is actually a better option than the Android tablet world. And that's funny because Android is based off Linux.
So you would think it's going to be the other way around, but no.
Right. And I think it's because people just haven't built the tools for it. Android's open source. That stuff could exist, but they just haven't done it yet.
Yes. Another comment in chat we should mention is that some less expensive Chromebooks may not be able to run Linux apps. So that's something
that is true. That is true.
And that is by Jason Earls.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Not all Chromebooks are created equal.
No. So just keep that in mind. If you want to go on the Chromebook, just keep that in mind. By the way, we've got 5 folks watching. This is awesome.
Yes, it is. Thank you guys for being here. Yes. And, I honestly think the Pixelbook or the Pixelbook Go are very good Chromebooks if you want something like that for development.
Yes. I'm just curious, if anybody is watching, has anybody used a Chromebook for development? Leave your thought in the chat. Do you guys have Chromebooks or do you use them for development? We're just curious to see what you guys' thoughts are. I
just think it's funny that I tried to install Android Studio on the Chromebook and it failed miserably.
Oh, no.
Mike, Your Own Pay asked, what's Linux? LOL.
Oh, my gosh.
We're gonna Your Own Pay is gonna Your Own Pay somewhere else. No, we know Michael. We know Your Own Pay. He's awesome, and leave your details in the chat, Michael, so people can find your website, because you do some great stuff. But yeah, Linux is very similar to Windows and Mac OS as far as being an operating system, and if you're very good with a command line, you're gonna love Linux. And if you have a server, you're going to love Linux.
I actually had a friend who did a lot of her graphic design, a lot of her, not so much coding, but a lot of her, basic things on a Surface, and it was really powerful. So, yeah.
Well, on a Surface, it's a full computer, so it's running Windows 10 or soon Windows 11. And the neat thing is that you could run Node.js, you could run Electron apps, you could do all the things that you cannot do on an iPad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm actually probably going to be getting one soon.
Honestly, though, the iPad does have an app called Play.js, which lets you run some Node applications, and any React Native app you build is using basically, it's compiling the app using Node, but you're not running Node in the app, so that's really neat, as far as I know. I'd be very curious to know how that actually works.
Mm-hmm. So if anybody knows, feel free to put your thoughts in chat. so those are the messages we have right now. We're just going to kind of give folks a second. But yeah, like I said, this has been an awesome show so far. So I was going to say something and I forgot what it was. We were talking about the design aspect, right, Michael?
Right. We're kind of going off
All
about
of
the
the
design.
above.
Yeah. And I want to take the opportunity and talk about. We're going to put it in the description later on. I want to take an opportunity to talk about our Discord, the Programming for Everyone Discord.
Yeah. It's awesome.
We've had a lot of people join, and if you're listening and you're chatting it up in the Discord, we want to thank y'all for doing that. And it's been awesome getting to talk to folks today. This is the first day that a lot of folks have joined, so welcome. And that Discord is used for promoting all kinds of different things as far as programming and technology. So we love it. And yeah, so Lauren, since you're our guest here today, why don't you talk about some things that you have done, since you've used the iPad for development? What kind of projects have you done with that?
Mostly WordPress development. I, for a long time, used my iPad to actually develop sites, mostly from the interface side. So mostly, with a block editor, moving things around. And I liked it because I felt more spatially aware. And I was able to lay things out and plan things out in a more small, compact space, which you would think it would be the other way around. You'd think it'd be easier to code or to design on a larger scale, but that wasn't really the case for me. And I did a lot of, learning how to program on my iPad. So through Swift Playgrounds, through watching different tutorials and things like that, and then just jumping over to one of the coding apps and just practicing on my own. Yeah. That's about it.
Cool. So here's a question that I have, and I want to see if anybody knows the answer. What do you guys think are some options? Can the iPad run a shell, like a command line?
Isn't there an app for that?
There is an app for that. Do y'all know what it is?
I do, but do you know, Lauren?
I do not.
Ish,
Sorry.
right? ISH?
There's actually two apps. There's one called ISH, and there's one called A Shell.
Ah, the second one is what I was thinking of.
So ISH is actually emulated Linux. So you're actually running full Linux on an iPad, and there's a GitHub link that you can use to install the package manager for it. There's also a shell is very similar. It can run Python and a lot of other things. It's a little more limited, but it's not emulated, so it runs faster. And A shell actually works with Siri shortcuts, so you can import a command in and get output from running a shell script through shortcuts.
Oh, really cool.
That's awesome.
But at least ISH, I know for sure, you can do anything. So you can even start up a web server with Node and Nginx with ISH by hand, folks.
That is crazy.
That's amazing.
And then you can open Safari on your iPad, put them in split screen, and then run your web application.
That is insanity.
That's really neat.
There's even a way that, and I don't remember the name of the project anymore, but there is even a way, it's called Code Server.
Code server, yep.
Where you could run VS Code in a browser and get all of the support that you would get with the desktop app, except for the use of Microsoft extensions, which are most of them.
Yes, but could you, if you had if you had some kind of server in the cloud, you could connect to that somehow, couldn't you?
Well, you could use Splashtop to connect to it and use VS Code. The problem is that the goal, when I think of programming on an iPad, I don't want to connect to a server. I want to be able to do everything on device. So yeah, you could always connect to a server and do all those things, or connect to your home computer on your network. But if you don't have to, you don't have to. That's the way I look at it.
By the way, our Discord is really popping tonight.
That's great.
Members, so yeah, feel free. But that's awesome. And we do have one more chat message from Jason Earls. A dog is similar to being a mouse. A dog is similar to a mouse as far as being an animal. This is a long chat message. Sorry, guys. I'm kidding. Linux has some great tools.
Yeah.
That's because I said that Linux is similar to other operating systems.
Yeah.
So, Jason will always be a Mac fan. We know this.
He always will.
And, that Jason loves his Apple stuff. And, so... And I still say that a Mac is still one of the best developer platforms, just because of the built-in Unix infrastructure. So, Taylor, since Windows, you use Windows, and you could technically do the same thing on a Windows tablet. Explain how you feel like using Windows for node development and that kind of stuff. Is it easy to use, or is it kind of a pain because of going between PowerShell, WSL, and others? Or
Windows and Node.js development is a pain in my rear end, y'all. I'm just saying, you have to go between so many different things, and sometimes Node doesn't like one thing, and sometimes you have to go between the Windows subsystem for Linux. And you want to know what the other thing I mostly do? I just hop on our remote Mac server, which we should probably also talk about, Michael, as well. How that can kind of, we're talking about programming and stuff, but man, in Node and Windows, oh my goodness gracious, it's just so much easier to do on a Unix-based operating system. What are y'all's thoughts about that? If you have any in chat, I want to hear them.
So one thing I want to point out, and it's too bad that Windows 11 didn't work too well for you, is one of the things, that's a whole different story. One of the neat things that Windows 11 offers is built-in support between WSL and PowerShell. So you could, like, in WSL type code space, whatever, and it will actually launch a remote SSH extension right into your WSL from VS Code in Windows.
Yes, and that's definitely something else. Sorry, I just was reading a chat message, and it's actually a really good point, so I'm going to bring it up here. Henry asks, Apple usually tries to keep iOS pretty closed. Do you think that they will ban those SSH apps in the future?
Nope. Because Apple has had to relax their policies on remote or on compiled code execution. And technically, anything that the manufacturer, like ISH or HL, provides is only scriptable. Now, with that being said, you can, it has commands built in that are Linux commands to download files. So, if you go download the, I think it's called, what's their package manager called? I can't remember. But if you go download their package manager and you install it yourself, there's nothing in the law, in the rules of Apple saying you can't do that. So that's how these folks can get away with what they're doing.
Yeah, but it's still a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because definitely something to keep in mind.
So, if you had to pick, what would be the things that you wish the iPad could do as far as development?
Me or Lauren?
Either of you guys.
I don't really, like I said, again, I'm not really an iPad in a sense like user for coding, but what I would say is that maybe it would be more, if it could be more practical. But again, an iPad, right, there's a certain use, right? It's not going to be, a full-on developer machine. But Lauren, like I said, since she does have more experience in this area, I want to hear what she has to say.
Yeah, I mean, I used my iPad for really everything. I'm more of a mobile first thinker, so when I, go for a development project, the first thing I want to do is start typing away on my iPad. So for me, I wish that it had a little more capability as far as just, I mean, overall development, compiling more, um, just overall. um, but I'm really excited to see, because with the new Swift Playgrounds, I'm curious to see what that will be like. It would be pretty cool to see just more flexibility and more openness from Apple, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I have an app on my Android phone called Ultimate Servers Plus. And this is a neat server or neat application because it basically, what I would love, okay, on the iPhone is to use my iPhone as a server device. So this Ultimate Servers has mail servers. It has, and I kind of forgot that I haven't told you guys about this. It has mail servers. It has, believe it or not, an Icecast server. It has Apache. It has MySQL. And I could SSH into my Android phone and actually change all this stuff. And I can tell it what servers to start and stop from a graphical user interface and all that kind of stuff. When we start to see that on an iPhone, then, and be able to do that on an iPad, that would be amazing.
Oh,
There we go. Yep. I want to see like a VS Code for iPad. That'd be awesome. Like a well-rounded
An on-device.
VS Code. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Possibly written
it can be
React
done.
Native.
Well, that could be done. I think they would have to convert their Magenta editor. Yes, I believe that's the name, right, Taylor?
Blah, blah, blah. Let me make sure I got that name. It's a little weird name. I think it's Monaco. Come back
Monaco.
to me on that.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's one of those M words.
But you can interact it with React Native.
Oh, can you?
Yes, it's called Monaco. In fact, yeah, it can be interacted with React Native.
Interesting.
There's actually a package called React Monaco Editor.
Whoa.
And that's on GitHub. I'm gonna throw that in the link. I'm gonna throw that link in the chat for y'all in case anybody's interested. Do we want to talk a little bit about what that is, Michael?
Yeah. Do you want to?
I will go ahead and do that. So the Monaco editor is the backbone of the VS Code interface. So if you have worked with VS Code, and if you haven't, shameless plug, Taylor's Tech Talks, which is my channel. So if you really like hearing my content, that is my channel, and I've got a whole bunch of tutorials on VS Code. And the Monaco editor is the awesome component that powers the backbone of that program. So it's really cool because it's super accessible. They made it super awesome for people to use, and yeah, they do have a package on GitHub called React Monaco Editor.
Wow. And then you could
throw that in the GitHub for y'all.
In the chat.
The GitHub. Yeah. And I'm gonna also throw that in the Discord as well.
Excellent.
That way, people can reference it later.
But one of the revelations I made today is how awesome React Native is. And I think with a good JavaScript editor like Play.js and others on the iPad and Expo Go, I think you could literally make a React Native app and get it ready for the App Store on the iPad.
I was wondering when you were going to mention that app.
Yeah, I just learned about all this stuff today. So I'm pretty amazed with what we can do now. Like, I was actually learning some React Native stuff earlier today, and I was looking at this stuff, and you could press a button to open the sample code and view it in action on the Expo Go app. And that was really fantastic on how that worked.
Yeah, so I'm curious, if anybody in the chat, has anybody ever worked with React Native? I'd like to hear it, if anybody has experience with it. And we've also been playing around with it. I've been playing around with it as well. I used to use it at my old job, but I actually had to create a new account because I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to be making this code on my old job React Native account for my Expo. But it's really awesome. I really like, and I'm actually doing it all within VS Code until I realized that the VS Code was crashing. But It's a really awesome thing where you can literally run the app on your iPhone and it will update in real time.
Sometimes I think VS Code, once you put too many extensions in it, it just says, nope, I'm done.
Uh-huh. But that's why I like to enable extensions based on workspaces, where maybe you don't need all the extensions, but you can literally disable and enable based on the different workspaces.
Right.
And workspaces, again, for those who are not aware, are basically, you can kind of think of them as a project container for your project. So you can have different workspaces with different like run and build settings and configurations. And all they allow you to do is they allow you to have those settings stored in that little workspace, in your work area. But the cool thing is that you can have, extensions that are independent from your main installation of VS Code, or you can isolate some extensions that you don't want in that workspace. So that could be a potential solution, is using workspaces and making sure we enable and disable extensions based on what we're going to use.
Yep.
Yep. Just thought I would mention that point there.
And I think the day that we get VS Code on an iPad natively or locally, either way, is the day that the iPad will be a very useful developer environment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. I totally agree.
That'll be exciting.
So, I guess, I'm on an iPad right now recording this show, and, I have to always say, I guess the other thing that kind of breaks the iPad for development is the walled garden approach, because you can't just run an app, in the background. You can't do a lot of the things that you would do on a desktop. So I guess if you're trying to build desktop apps, you really don't want to even try that on an iPad.
No. I mean, maybe like the design and prototype, but nothing more.
At least until we get more of, some of the features. The iPad Pros with the M1 chips with 8 gigs of RAM, they can support a lot of this stuff. But I think until we can actually start seeing some changes in how iOS handles, file system management, which I don't know that we're going to see. I don't think that's going to happen. And what I'm worried about is I hope we don't see that transition more to the desktop side.
But we just don't know.
Right.
It's all an unknown.
You don't want it going to the desktop side?
No, because if you kind of I want to see the desktop go more to the iPad, where you can have more access to your files and where apps can request permissions to go outside their walled garden.
Okay.
I would like to see that so that we could have more of a computer-like experience where, you could go to any file on the computer. Wall off the system, I'd be fine with that, and then just make it to where you have your files and the projects you can create and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely, let me see here. Okay, making sure we didn't have any chat messages. Kind of check our Discord and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But this is a topic that this is not the only time we're going to talk about this topic.
No,
because to me this is a very personal topic, because I love my iPad. I would love my iPad to be the only device I ever have to travel with. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I can't do that.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, before I started really diving into code, that was my device. I hardly ever used my Mac.
And now
until I started coding. And now I always use my Mac and hardly use my iPad, which is really sad.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lauren, my glass. So, Lauren, because since you're a student in computer science, how, in terms of that angle, right, because you're going to be doing an iPad, were there challenges that you faced while you're trying to do your classes on an iPad, since you were mostly an iPad-only user at the forefront?
From a computer science perspective, I actually had to use a Windows computer for a lot of my classes because they needed Visual Studio and they needed other integrations. So I used a Windows for a lot of the coding stuff. And I used my iPad for all of my assignments and all of my, other stuff.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yeah, from a coding perspective, it was Windows. If I could use my Mac in any way, I would. I have an Intel Mac, so I was able to use Boot Camp and run it that way. But yeah.
So I have a programming challenge for all of you iPad owners. Get ISH, figure out how to install the package manager, and then install Node.js, run npm init, and write your first app on the iPad.
Yep.
There's a challenge.
And let's go put that in the Discord as well, so that people who are watching later on can be able to take advantage of that as well. And if you do have something, and if you're able to do it, tell us in the Discord.
Yeah, we want to know about the coolest thing you're able to do as far as development on the iPad. Just like blow our minds. Just
blow it up. Blow up the Discord.
Well, don't blow up the Discord.
Well, I mean, I say blow up the Discord with your cool ideas, but yeah, literally don't blow up the Discord, but blow our
That's why we have an introductions channel, so we can make sure it doesn't blow up. So yeah, we want to hear about your ideas and how you're able to improve your or build cool stuff from your iPad.
Yeah.
It's also really interesting seeing what Windows 11 is doing for applications, because they're really promoting the use of web PWAs for the Microsoft Store. So it'll be neat to see them promote more than just UWP and WinForms, but to actually use a PWA and put maybe Electron apps and stuff like that in the Windows Store.
Yes, and while we're on the topic of Windows, we've got a chat from Jason. It's a little bit off topic, but I feel like it should be addressed. It says, I know that this is a Windows question. Is one screen reader better than another for developing in terms of how they report indentation, code errors, and things like that?
Good question.
I have a clear winner, but I want to hear what everybody else thinks before I run my mouth, because obviously I'm pretty opinionated about this topic, as I do have a tutorial about how to do this with NVDA on my Taylor's Tech Talks, but I want to hear from the other two before I run my mouth anymore.
So let me say, I know, Lauren, you probably have some ideas, but my favorite way to develop with a screen reader is if and I kind of wish that we could have this in other places, because I love this. I love it, love it, love it. If I'm working with a screen reader, I love working in Xcode with iOS app development and the issues rotor. That is amazing, where I can switch to issues and then flick up or down on my trackpad to go between issues in my code. Love that.
Right. But since this is more of a Windows thing.
Right. And, I was just saying that's my favorite overall thing.
Favorite, right? Yeah.
But no, I would have to say for Windows, it would be, probably NVDA.
I actually learned something new today. That's cool. I didn't know about the issues rotor.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would probably have to say NVDA. Yes. I've actually used both. I've used JAWS. I've used NVDA. I've used Narrator. But I found NVDA to be the best all the way around.
Yep. I completely agree. In fact, I have a tutorial for anybody who's interested on how to use VS Code with NVDA. I actually have a whole playlist, but I have one in particular about how to set up indentation reporting, right? Because part of coding is understanding the fundamental structure of your code through indentation. And so I actually show how to set up a configuration profile in NVDA that will only show up in VS Code, that will read your indentations, and it will read it by speech and tones. So I'm going to throw that in the Discord as well as the chat, so that if you're interested, you can learn how to do that from my Taylor's Tech Talks YouTube. But I have to agree, NVDA by far. JAWS, I'm sorry, but it can't come close for development. That's just, NVDA is a lot better. And the reason Jason asked this, he follows it up by saying, whoops. Okay. Sorry, guys.
I could see Jason writing oops in the chat.
No. I asked because of Windows 11 on a tablet.
Right.
So that's why he's asking. So basically, I think he's asking about, he asked that because of Windows. Like, how would coding on Windows 11 on a tablet be? Right.
Really about the same as Windows 10
Yep.
on a tablet. Really.
And we also have one more chat message. Ask Jeff. So what
We
about
know him
coding
too.
on Android devices? Which we already kind of covered this earlier, but if we want to.
Yeah. So kind of as a recap, Android, get my operating systems right. Android is really good. And this is not just for coding. Android is really good at supplying the framework for coding. And what I mean by that is, like I have an app called Ultimate Servers Pro, where you can run like IceCast or, Apache or as a web server or other server technologies. Because Android apps usually don't scale well for tablets, it's a little more problematic. I don't know that there's anything that comes close to what you could get on the iPad, and definitely not on Windows. And there's not the desktop quality apps you could get on Android. If you're going to go with a Google device, I would look at Chromebooks more than using Android for coding. I was thinking about something I was going to say. I can't remember, but I think, there's ways to do anything. Actually, what I was going to say also was one of the things that I love about Android too is I always keep an Android phone around, even if it's like a few years old. Can anybody guess why?
No.
No.
Mobile hotspot.
Oh.
The iPhone has a terrible mobile hotspot. So it works really well. You could connect to your iPhone's hotspot and it works great until you're not using it, and then it drops off. And you have to go turn it back on again. And connect to your device again. And do all these other things. Android, you turn that sucker on and it's going to stay on. Until 5 hours later when your battery dies. It will kill your Android phone's battery quick. But, so where I use this the most, if I'm at a hotel room and we want $30 a day for hotel internet, nope.
Although I don't have that luxury, so unfortunately I have to shell the $30 for their hotel internet.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that's one reason why I get an Android phone through, I'm part of a certain program where I can get one each year. And so that's why I always select that. So I always make sure that I have that, ability.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because when it's not pandemic season or years, I travel a lot. So I want to be able to always have internet if I'm doing a presentation or something like that.
Yep, that's essential. Like I said, me as well. Although, unfortunately, I have to spend more on internet than I care to admit. But, it's just my life sometimes.
Right.
We do have some more chat messages. We're blowing up the chat here. So, we have... Jason just says the word hotspot. Acid Jeff says, "Oh, it's in the spirit of your challenge," with a smiling face emoji.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. Man. It's awesome though. But yeah, no, like I said, it's definitely been an awesome show so far. But yeah. Those were the chat messages. I just wanted to get those out there.
Well, I want to point out something. It's interesting that we actually have a very interactive chat. We record another podcast every Sunday. I mean, we always tell people we're not going to have many, be able to take many chats because we're very busy talking and we don't really, because it's going out to podcast networks and that kind of stuff. But it's a neat thing that this show, both weeks in a row, has gotten a lot of chat response.
Yes. We have. Yeah, it's awesome. And we've got more. Oh my gosh.
What's up?
Nighthawk M1 hotspot for the win. So what is that, SJF? Nighthawk M1 hotspot. What is that?
Yeah.
Feel free to say it, and we'll. And also, if you're not part of the Discord, you know what we need to do, Michael? We need to make a resources channel.
We do.
Then we could, if you're not in the Discord, you should be a part of it, and throw those things in the Discord if you think they could be essential. While they might not be related to programming, they could technically, because if you're trying to program on the go and you need internet, in this case. So if you have anything, feel free to put that in the chat on YouTube or join the Discord, and I will throw the link to the Discord in the chat for those who don't have it.
The only thing I can think of of Nighthawk is they have the router line, so I'm guessing it's part of the same line. So probably would be very good since those devices are used for gaming.
Yeah, but I'm just curious. Like I said, yeah, I'm gonna wait for that response. But yeah, no, this is awesome. A very interactive chat. I'm super happy about this. But yeah.
This is our second show on this series and of shows, and last week we talked about
we were all over the place.
all over the place, all different things.
That should be the episode title.
Right. I don't even know what we called it. We didn't even have a proper show title.
Techopolis Live, but maybe we should call it Michael and Taylor are all over the place.
Yeah. But yeah, we came up with Techopolis Live for the proper name of the show, and this is the second episode, and we're going to do this weekly. It's really a lot of fun, and we're even going to get that Jason guy that's in the chat to come up here one week, so, get ready for that. That's going to be fun. To talk about audio editing and production, and we might even do a comparison of what he does with what we talked about last week with Descript, and I think that would be kind of a fun discussion.
Oh, you know what we should do is Mac versus iOS audio production. Nah, never mind.
Mac wins.
Mac wins. Okay, yes,
but
I will tell you that it is possible on iOS. So there's a win for that.
Well, there's an app called Fearite, and this kind of goes back to using a tablet, and you can use it. It's just sometimes the keyboard shortcuts are a little wonky, and Jason's tried to use it, and I don't think we're going to start really see audio production be as good on iOS until we start seeing like Logic for iOS, and iMovie is a great app, but that's an exception, I think, not the rule.
All right, so we do have a response to the Nighthawk question.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nighthawk M1 uses your SIM card for cell data. It's battery powered and can last up to a full day on the road.
Wow.
And so it's battery powered as well.
Wow.
Impressive.
And we have a follow up to that from Master Jeff, same person. Around the Tech with Michael and Taylor.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. We may change the name back on that channel, and we're going to post that episode 1 on this channel as well. If you're not subscribed to Techopolis, please subscribe. We're going to do this show as a weekly show, but the other cool thing about this channel is we're going to be putting a lot more content. So if anybody has tech tips or ways to program something that you find interesting, we're going to put that up here as well. We're going to put up our favorite stuff, and we're going to link to everybody who's here. All of our channels are going to be linked in the channel section. It's going to be a fantastic channel. We're going to be hopping, we're going to be posting content all the time, and we're going to be really, we want to get the maximum out of this channel so that you guys can learn and enjoy the conversation, because ultimately the point of this is to be a programming conversation. Like, it's great doing the work, but if you're as passionate about this stuff as we are, we want to talk about it too. So we want you to talk with us.
Yes. And we had 2 more chat messages come through. Mac, hands down. Ferrite breaks my brain.
I'm guessing that's Jason.
Long ways, yes. It's come to M1 Max
I mean,
someday, but it's not there yet, as far as I know. And that was from Jason, by the way.
the reason I bring that up is just to say, like, it's not a complete wash, you know?
Right.
Like, it does exist. It is another way of one of many features that do exist, I guess.
Yeah. And and we may touch on that if we can pull Jason on the show kicking and screaming.
That would be entertaining.
Yep. I could just imagine him coming into camera like kicking and screaming and all that. That would be pretty amusing. But
The images. No, I'm
yes,
kidding.
yes. So, I think we're going to have a lot of fun on this channel, and I hope people subscribe and contribute to this, and we're going to really have some good conversations. It won't all be about programming, but a lot of what we're going to talk about will be, and I just think that we're going to I want to get the conversation going around programming, so we could bring people into coding that may not have done it before and that are scared of being in programming. And bringing back to our actual topic, that's one of the easiest ways to get people into programming, and you don't even need an iPad. You could use an iPhone.
Right.
That would be a pain, but Swift Playgrounds and the games that they support are actually accessible.
Yes.
They're fully accessible. A person can learn to code through the Swift Playgrounds app and their little games. You may have to, if you're using a screen reader with VoiceOver, you may have to do a lot of memorization, but it does work.
Yes, it does. I've never, like I said, I haven't really, I honestly learned, I don't even know how I started to learn to code, honestly. I think I found Michael's podcast, and then I just started to I'm like, this sounds interesting.
Yeah. We have a podcast. I don't know if we're going to be continuing it. It may just turn into this. We have a podcast called the IA Codecast on the iAccessibility Podcast Network, the IACast Network. And I believe Aaliyah Dudley did a very good walkthrough of the first lesson in the Swift Playgrounds app. So you may guys want to go and check out the IA Codecast, and one of the first episodes there is how to do that. We even talk about Python, and really we haven't talked much about Pythonista, on iPad, and we've mentioned it, but one of the neatest things about that is it can allow you to write full Python code on an iPad and even install packages. It's difficult to get working, but you can install like Django or any package that doesn't require C libraries. So WX Python is out. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, we tried that one.
But the other thing, though, is that Pythonista does support its own graphical user interface. So you could write Pythonista apps that use native UI like Expo does for Node.js. The difference is, though, you cannot bundle and distribute Pythonista apps.
That would be a deal breaker, because we don't want everybody to have Pythonista.
Right. But if you're working in an organization and you have a special use case, that could be an option if your developers are only on Python.
Correct. We do have a few more chat messages. Jason said, I thought Swift Playgrounds was only available for iPad.
I believe there might be no, you're right. It is only available on iPad. I'm going to make sure of that, though, because I thought I remember seeing it on iPhone as well. But let me check. What other chat messages do we have?
We have Asajov says, Raspberry Pis and microservers could be a line for development topics.
Oh, we'll definitely do that in the future.
Yeah.
Another that I want to touch on in another podcast or another episode of the show is I think it'd be cool to talk about actually using games to teach development.
Huh. Mm-hmm. Are you guys there?
Yes, I'm looking this up in the App Store.
Oh, no problem. I just want to make sure my internet wasn't going crazy. But yeah, no, I guess it is a good point, Joe, Jason. But we are verifying that just to make sure as well. And I'm gonna link to my channel as well.
No, Jason is correct. It is not available for iPhone. I could have sworn it was.
I could have sworn to.
Test Flight is available for both, but and that's another thing. If you don't want to develop apps, get Test Flight and actually Google some betas and test some apps for folks. It can help accessibility wise. It can help in so many ways. Just get Test Flight and try stuff out, and that's coming for the Mac soon as well. If you're on the Android side, get in the Play Store, look up, go look for betas online, and you can become a beta tester in the Play Store for different apps. It's all built into the Play Store app.
Yep, and that definitely helps developers to be able to make more accessible apps. So if you're not, into the coding, like I said, you can definitely be testing because there's needs for that as well. And we've got 2 likes on this thing.
Just leave feedback. Leave that feedback for your developers.
Yep. Because as developers ourselves, right? I talked about this last week on a digital accessibility panel. As developers ourselves, well, me and Michael and Lauren being developers, we may, develop with accessibility in mind. We still are pretty advanced users, right? Because we kind of have to be as a developer. But we may miss out on some of those things that beginner or intermediate users may have troubles with.
We're human. We make mistakes. Right. We, test as much as we can, but at the end of the day, things fall through the cracks. So that's where people like you guys come in, if you're not, coding, that can test these apps and let us know what happened and.
And, I want to bring up something I don't know if Taylor was ready to bring up, but you're going to be speaking on 2 panels before the next show. You want to talk about what you're going to be doing?
All right, y'all. So I'm going to be speaking at WordCamp Santa Clarita. It's in California, but obviously I don't have to go to California because, although it'd be really cool, I'd probably have to be getting ready and I wouldn't be able to, do this little show with you. So I'm going to be speaking about the importance of making your WordPress backend accessible, and I'm going to be doing that at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, July 18th online. I'm going to put a link where you can get tickets. It is free, and it will also be streamed on the WordCamp Santa Clarita YouTube channel. Captions will be available as well. The next day, I get to speak at an inclusive design meetup, which I'm still trying to get the link for. But I get to speak, yes, it's going to be about the same topic, obviously, because I'm not going to be, can't come up with 2 original topics in 2 days. That's just a little bit crazy. But it's going to be for a different audience, so I'm going to kind of tailor it, right, kind of meet the demands. And that one will be a lot more interactive, right, because it's going to be a meetup. I'm going to have the whole time slot. So if you are interested in any of those things, all those things, again, will be in the Discord as well. And while you may not be, like I said, may not be directly related to programming, it kind of is because we're talking about web development and in general, right? So I would encourage anyone, if you're free, or even if you're not, it will also be available on the Taylor's Tech Talks YouTube channel and podcast as well. So either way, you'll be able to get the presentation. But I just want to put that out there, that I am going to be speaking at those events.
Great. Well, do we have any more chat messages, Taylor?
I don't even know. I don't think we do. Man, the chat's been very active tonight.
It's awesome.
Oh,
yeah, great.
Okay. Jason has a good point. So here, I'm going to read this carefully because he has a good point, right? We don't want just any feedback, like it's broken. Something other than it's broken. So he says, how is it broken? What were you doing when it broke? What time did it break? Also, send screenshots so the developers are more able to replicate the problem. Good point, Jason. Good point.
Yeah, the more context you can provide, the better.
Yeah. Don't just say it's broken.
And if you do have some developer knowledge, let them know, hey, this button should say this and it says this. Things like that.
Yep, and if you even have more stuff, like I said, you could literally, I've given developers feedback that says, The accessibility rule or the label of this button or the form field is not set properly. Here is how I would do it if I were coding this app. And give them specific like code samples. That will really go a long way too, because then you're kind of feeding it in their mouth. Right?
Right. So I want to move on to another topic I just thought about as far as this the tablet accessibility, or not accessibility, development. And I'm curious how you guys, if you were on a tablet like an iPad, how would you develop? And I'm going to go first and say, because I was thinking about this, a way you could do it is if you have like Code Editor or Play.js or Pythonista. A lot of those apps have integration with the Files app. And so the neat thing is you could just save your documents on shared drives on Google Drive, like we talked about last week. And so you could be on your tablet or on your computer and get access to the same documents, and they would just save on the same locations. So, even using Wasabi through S3 to save your files, and that way you can go between devices. And actually, I don't know why I didn't mention this until now. There's another 2 apps that you really want to get on iPad. Just on iPad. They don't exist on Android. There's one called Secure Shellfish, and it lets you make remote connections through the Files app to FTP servers or using SCP, and you can edit files and stuff like that in other apps. So it's a way to connect to other resources. And another app that's great, and Taylor, you will wish you had an iPad for this. It's called Working Copy. And basically, it lets you mount and add, I believe it lets you add your Git repositories and stuff like that to your iOS device and actually check out files, work on them, and push them back to Git from iOS.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah, it's actually one of the top developer apps in the App Store. So I think it could even integrate with the Files app, so you can store files and get access to your Git repositories from the Files app. So then you could open them with, Swift Playgrounds or any other app. So I think that's really nice. It's called Working Copy.
I'm going to have to get that.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's all I have that I can think about. I want to be able to use my iPad more for development. I just can't bring myself to, do that. But I want to play with ISH some more, see where it's come from, the last 6 months that, I haven't played with it, and see what you can do with it. And the neat thing is ISH runs on the iPhone as well. So if you want to hook up a Bluetooth keyboard, you can do all the same things. Now, technically, you can run any web server in ISH. Just be aware, unlike Android, you close that out, and after about 7 minutes, it's going to go away. So that's kind of a drawback as well.
Yep, that definitely is a drawback.
Mm-hmm. Well, do we have anything left in the chat, Taylor, or do we want to go ahead and start?
We're clear for now.
Okay.
Just make sure though, and then are we going to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to wrap it up. I think we've talked about this quite a bit, don't you?
I agree.
Perfect.
So, do y'all have any final thoughts or comments before we go ahead and wrap up today?
Nope. I'm just checking chat, but I don't think we have anything else.
I think the iPad is a good prototyping, a good starting point, a good way to generate ideas, and a good way to, build up. I use it a lot to look at my code and review it and go back to the drawing board and then start over and, the cycle. I think it could definitely improve, and I'm excited to see kind of where things head.
Okay.
So.
Well, I guess if we're going to wrap this thing up, since you're our guest this episode, Lauren, do you want to go ahead and tell people where they could find you online producing, all your code and your content and all that?
Yeah, you can find me, I have a website, laurenflanner.com. You can find me on Instagram, laurenflanner10, Twitter, laurenflanner10. And you can pretty much stay up to date on kind of what I'm doing in the tech world on Twitter, pretty much. So, yeah.
Okay. And Taylor, what about you? I think people probably know how to find you, but just in case.
Yeah, all right. You can find me all over the web. So YouTube, Taylor's Tech Talks, Taylor'sTechTalks.com. You can also find me on the Discord. I'm pretty active there as well. You can additionally find me Taylor_on22, and my new company website launched today, y'all. So TaylorAccess.com is a thing. So yeah, if you want web accessibility or web development services, feel free to check it out. I'd be happy to help. Actually, we would. We're kind of all working together as a team, which is awesome. Got some awesome things going on there. So Michael and Lauren helped design the site. So if you are interested in potentially working with Taylor's Accessibility Services or any of our companies, right? Because I think we're all entrepreneurs here. So feel free to do that as well. But yeah, those are some places where you can find me.
All right. And you have been posting to Reddit. That's, how we got a lot of our awesome new followers on our Discord.
And I have a Patreon as well for Taylor's Tech Talks. I can throw that in the chat.
Okay. And you can find me. I'm Michael. I'm starting the Techopolis Online Solutions company, and that's what inspired this channel, to bring people together to talk about technology. We have the Programming for Everyone Discord. We can, get links out to folks. We also, I'm going to be working on my website, getting that operational. And you can also find more about me at iaccessibility.net, where we talk about different blindness-related topics in the IACast network. But I build apps, do all that kind of stuff. I'm Mike Dowies on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. Search for Michael Dowies, and I'm just all over the web. Just do a Google search. So I even have a personal YouTube channel, and we have the iAccessibility channel. So go look for those. Michael Dowies is my personal channel, and but I have a feeling I'll be posting more of my content here on the Techopolis channel. So I think we're going to do a video at some point about why this is called Techopolis and what that means and why it's so important. So stay tuned for that. And I'm just really excited about this live stream. I've had fun last week. I've had fun this week. We've gotten a lot talked about, learned some stuff too, which is amazing. And so we're going to keep this up on a weekly basis as long as we can.
We have one more chat. Henry says, awesome chat, you guys. So awesome.
Yes.
We're loving it that you guys are loving this. And feel free to share it with your friends as well. So if you are finding this content helpful, spread the word. That way we can get more people in the Discord. We can get more people talking. Spread the word.
All right. So we have a goal for this YouTube channel. I would like to, if you guys can help me out, can you get us to 20 subscribes by the end of the week? At the beginning of this episode, when I looked, we had 7.
I think we still do, but come on, guys, we can do it.
Yeah, let's get us up to 20. And, the notification does help. And, after this goes live, leave comments, leave any notes you want, not just in the chat, but in the comments. And that will help YouTube know that this is really a cool thing. And so that it will recommend it to others that are looking at coding.
Yep. So yeah, it was an awesome show, guys.
Yep. And we'll be back next week for more content. And we're kind of spontaneous, so we don't know what the next show is about, but we will tweet it out and all that good stuff. So
yep. And put it in the Discord.
Yep. So until next time, bye everyone.
Bye everyone.
Bye.